Welcome to I'm an Asset podcast. I'm Dr. Brianne Smith. I'm so glad you're here. We are in the middle of our pre-summer series where we are helping you figure out what you're going to do with your summer before you go either back to college or go to college for the first time. It's called the Summer Blueprint. If you didn't check out episode 1, go back and watch it. At the very end, I gave you an assignment, kind of giving you some quiet time to think about where am I, where do I want to be, and chart a path to get there. Today is all about the income bucket. So we're going to focus on your income. And specifically, I've got 5 things that we're going to discuss today. Number 1, do you need an income goal and how to set one? Number 2, we're going to do some paycheck math. So based on that goal or how much you'd like to make this summer, how many hours do you need to work at what pay rates? And we're going to do a little math check. And then what do you do with the money once you make it? So I've got a few ideas for you. Number 4, other benefits of working other than making money. And there are so many. So this summer is not all about just the paycheck, but we're also getting some other benefits to our personal capital related to the job, but outside of money. And then 5th, I'm going to give you some summer reading book ideas, specifically related to the money goals that we're talking about today. So let's kick it off with topic number 1. Do you need an income goal? Well, if you're really being honest with yourself and thinking about not everybody is going to be the same here. There's going to be maybe 3 buckets of people. You need the income, you want the income, or you're not sure. And so these are all very valid differences. The first one being, do you need the income? You probably have some financial obligations. Maybe you have a car payment, you have to cover your gas. Maybe you're covering substantially more than that, or you're contributing to the household in some way. So we have some specific needs that we need to cover. And then maybe in addition, have some discretionary spending on top of that. The second one, you want the income. So there's really no hard requirement here, but maybe you want some spending money, or there's something big you're saving up for to purchase. Or you just like that extra starting point of a bucket of savings. And then the last one, maybe you don't exactly know yet. So hopefully as we move forward in today's conversation, you can get an idea of that. So the first thing is to really get a handle on what is it that which bucket are you in? Do you need the money? Do you want the money? Or you're not sure? And then what would be a good place to start as far as if you ended up with the summer job and at the end of the summer you had a certain amount in your bank account, what feels right there? Also, looking back, if you have a need that you need to fulfill this summer as far as car payments and etc., add those up by months. Maybe you need to work a little extra to cover some in the fall. So add up all the expenses that you need to cover, plus any discretionary meaning spending that you get to decide whether or not you're going to spend it. Add that to the amount, and that's your income goal. So what I want you to do first is take a moment, maybe even pause here, and write that number down. Okay, let's move on to topic number 2, the paycheck math. So I want to actually go deeper into this in the summer when you actually have some pay stubs we can look at together. But just in general, if you're trying to decide how many hours you're going to work this summer, and you've got some opportunities at different hourly rates, let's see which one gets you to your goal. So I've got 2 examples here that I wanted to go over with you. You've got 10 to 12 weeks of summer. So let's just say 10 weeks for the average, but you put in your own amount of weeks that you have available. And let's say your income goal is $2,000. At 10 weeks, that's $200 a week. So I want you to write your income goal down and divide it by how many weeks of summer you have available to work. Then you'll have your weekly income number. So I'm using 200. You write down your number. And then now let's divide it by a couple of hourly rates. If you were to get a $10 an hour job, you would need to work 20 hours a week to get a gross income of $2,000 for the summer. If you are making $15 an hour, you need to work 13 hours a week. And finally, let's say $12 an hour, you need to work 17 hours a week. So what I would start with here is take your weekly amount, I'm using 200, and divide it by the amount of hours that you have available to work. So let's say my availability is 20 hours a week. So in the example I just gave you, if I divide 200 by 20, that's $10 an hour. So long as I get a job at least $10 an hour and work the 20 hours that I have available for the 10 weeks of the summer, I should meet at a minimum my $2,000 goal. Let's do it with $4,000. So if I have a $4,000 goal, 10 weeks, so I'm going to divide 4,000 by 10, that's $400 a week. So if I have 27 hours available, then I need to at least get a job that makes $15 an hour. And so I would, as you are deciding what job you're going to get, let's first determine how much money you need to at least make an hour in order to meet your income goal. That starts with topic number 1. You already wrote that number down. How much do you want to make this summer? Now, next step, how many hours a week can you work? And then divide your weekly income amount by your availability of hours. And that should be the minimum hourly goal that you're searching for when you're looking for a job. So as you're applying for jobs now, you're looking for a specific minimum dollar amount and a minimum hourly availability in order to meet your goal. So let's say you apply for a restaurant and the restaurant's looking for, they only have 10 hours a week to offer you, but maybe the hourly rate is more because you have tips that you'll be earning. So you can play with the amount of hours versus the dollar amount in order to reach your income goal. So the big takeaway here is to look at the rate and the hours, not just the rate, because we kind of get into the habit of looking at the dollars per hour, but you also need to consider your availability and the company that you're working with, how much they're going to allow you to work this summer. Okay, you got that written down? Let's move on to topic number 2. What are you going to do with this money? So I've got 3 children and they're all very different with money. So we need to come up with a plan that suits your personality, because I have one child who is a saver, and I have to convince him to spend money even when he needs to on certain things. And then I've got one who's a pretty good balance, and one who loves to spend every dime in the bank account. So we have to structure the way that we save this money differently depending on your difficulty or your personality with money. And we should assess that, and we will further in the summer, but you should really think about how good at saving money are you without a complex plan. Because at the most complex, if you're having a hard time saving money, you need to make it a little more difficult to get to. So I'll explain in a moment. So here's 3 ideas or buckets that I want you to think about putting your money in this summer. And I've simplified it just because this is, a good starting point. We can always get more complex with this in the future. I want you to separate your summer money into 3 buckets. Now you can put it into 3 separate bank accounts. You can put it into jars. You can put it, in certain places, but it does need to be separated in some way so that you can at least mentally compartmentalize the different amounts. So you have a needs bucket. You're going to use this for gas, for your phone. Maybe you have contributions you need to make to your family, your car payment. That goes in the bucket that needs to be spent on obligations. The second bucket is your savings cushion. So this is money that you are not going to touch, and you can kind of come up with a goal of, this is going to be my emergency savings. This is a huge Dave Ramsey idea, that you have a emergency savings goal that you don't touch. He says $1,000 is your first mark. Maybe you start off with $500 this summer and you try to build up a savings account of money that's just for emergencies. So come up with that amount. And then the third bucket is just life and self-investment. So this can be spent on experiences. It can be building an intentional skill, like maybe you buy a study guide for a book, some kind of skill you want to get or earn, or a license or a certificate, or maybe it's a book you want to read or a course you want to take or some kind of life experience. So it doesn't have to be equally split between these three. You get to decide, but I would do it in percentages, because let's say that you work 25 hours a week one week, and then you work 10 hours another week, and maybe you go on a vacation, you're a week off, and then you work 35 hours the following week. Your paychecks might be different throughout the summer. So let's pick, 50% goes to needs, 40% goes to savings, 10% goes to your life bucket. Or you could do 20% on obligations if you have lesser obligations, 50% on life, 30% on savings. You structure it that best fits your goals, but I do want you to start thinking about your money in buckets. Also, that savings bucket, that is the one that you don't want to be touching. There's a couple of different ways that you can set it up so that it makes it harder for you to spend and sabotage your goals. So if you can get a completely different savings account or checking account, I usually, in my savings account that I like to keep, I keep it at a separate bank that's not connected to my current bank. I can still get to the money, but it's harder to get to it impulsively. The other thing is I don't have a debit card for this account, so I can't just swipe and spend this money. I would have to either go and get the money, physically transfer it, or write a check, and I never have a checkbook with me. So that's a good way to set up an account kind of farther away, not to where you can't get it forever, but that it makes it more difficult for you to spend. When you really don't want to be spending it, that your goal is what you're setting now, and to help you follow through on it, you can make it a little bit further away. Okay, so try those steps. If you want, we'll come back to this more in the summer, and I think if you would comment on some additional things that you're looking forward to in the summer and some questions that you have, we are going to do a whole summer series on throughout the summer, including looking at your paycheck, etc. Okay, let's move on to topic number 4. And we're looking beyond the paycheck here, because what else does a job give you other than money? And a paycheck is just like one return on your time, but there's other things that most people underestimate as far as what a job gives you. And we're looking at personal capital here. So we're looking at what are the things that a job is going to do for you that builds your personal capital, which makes you more likely to earn more income in the future, build on that experience, and grow in your value. So the first one I want to mention is structure. So a job really does help you structure your day and be really intentional about your free time. So when you have certain hours during the week that you have to be at a job, then you can still do other things other than a job, but you have to be very intentional about when you're going to do it and the time of day. So what I like to do is keep a weekly calendar, and I look at it ahead every week, and I put all of my obligated time on that calendar. So I see, here's where I have all of the things I have to do, including work, or I might have a doctor's appointment or something I need to show up for my kids. So all of those obligated times I'm going to put on my calendar first. And then I add other things that I want to do outside of that. So maybe we have dinner we want to make with friends. Maybe we want to go to the beach. There's some other things and enjoyable things that we want to do. I could also, maybe I have some educational experiences. I want to build a skill, so I'm going to schedule that time. A job really provides a structure around your schedule so that you can be intentional about all of your time, not just your work time. And of course, it helps you get used to showing up to a job on time, not being on time, not late, taking breaks, etc. Second habit is just professionalism in general. When you work with other people that aren't your family or your friends, there is just a different way that you show up. And so showing up on time, but then also taking feedback. So whenever you're working a job, especially if it's the first time you've ever worked a job, you're likely to get critiqued or given feedback on how you can do it better. These are good things. And I always go back to the coaching scenario here, where if a coach didn't help you, give you feedback and give you pointers on how to improve, the coach is really not helping you become a better athlete. Well, this is very much the same thing in a workplace. Like if your boss or supervisor is not giving you feedback, they're really not helping you grow. And so you're really looking for supervisors and mentors who are going to help you grow this summer. And that comes with periodic feedback. This helps you also in professionalism communicate like an adult. So we are very used to communicating each other via text and email, Snapchat, but here we have to be a lot of one-on-one in person. So it's very good at building those communication skills, which are so good to develop for your future. And then also it helps you in the classroom too. So if you build up some confidence in communicating over the summer in a job, it's going to be easier to communicate with your professors and classmates in the fall. Also, fourthly, hopefully you do a good job this summer and you have a reference that you can add to future either resumes or whenever someone asks for a reference. So if you have a strong supervisor relationship, this goes even further than just your GPA or a good resume. This is someone that a future employer could call and ask about you, and that really goes a long way. So having a summer job starts the process of you building that reference list. I also think a job gives you real confidence, because once you are really checking off the box of things that you were given to do, you do them and then you do them in a good way. It builds your confidence in being able to provide future services or future skills to other people in other contexts, how to handle people, how to do hard things. All these things really matter. Next, a job gives you like a different view of the world when you're put in a different context, maybe a different industry or environment, and a different set of people. So it gives you a wider view of the world and not your typical friend group or your family. It opens your eyes to other cultures, other things that are happening in and around the world. And this is a good way to help you even dream about what you could possibly do when you see what other people are doing outside of your circle. So one thing I want to mention here is when you get a summer job, really working hard to do your best at it, so that you can get a good reference, so that you can build that confidence, and so that you can be remembered in a good way. Okay, I have one more topic for you, and that's summer reading suggestions. So I have so many in the income bucket area. I'm going to give you I've got 5 or 6 book recommendations related to income. What I think before I give you these, I want you to think about the possibility of reading 2 or 3 books this summer. And I'm going to give you a book recommendation over the next 4 episodes related to the bucket we're talking about. So this bucket today, we're talking about income. So I've got some income book recommendations, but I think you should pick a variety and spend 30 minutes a day reading this summer. And by the end of the summer, you will have read 3 books. So that's a real skill that builds a background, builds experience, and helps you gain new knowledge. So recommendation number 1 is called The Total Money Makeover. This is by one of my all-time favorites, Dave Ramsey. It's a really foundational personal finance piece. It is practical, not a lot of jargon. It's good if you're just starting out. Recommendation number 2, I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi, and he has written this for young adults, and it's real talk about banking and saving and making your money work for you, and it's not a boring book. It's a really good book. Recommendation number 3, The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley. This book in particular changes how you might think about wealth when Maybe you have this mindset of what wealth looks like to an outsider, but this is a different perspective. So I think it's a good read. Also, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, recommendation number 4. This is Robert Kiyosaki, and this is a classic. Really talks a lot about assets versus income, which is a good dynamic. I think you should get used to thinking about your money, and financial independence. So it's a really good book. 5th, Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin. And this really reframes money as stored energy and is really useful when you start thinking about what you want your work to go towards, like what you want your work to fund in your life. And then finally, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, classic book. And it's actually it's a page turner. It's a really good read, and you're going to read it really fast. He's got several books, but that's the one I would start with. So here's your assignment as I close. You want to do 3 things before the next episode. Write down your income goal, then do the math. Figure out what hourly rate and what hours that turns out to be. And then decide on your 3-bucket strategy as far as how you're going to split your paycheck. And then lastly, pick an income book. You don't have to read all 6, just pick one to start with and put it on your summer reading list. So next week, we're going to talk about the skills bucket, and we're really going to be focusing on what it is you're actually building this summer, and then how to look at what it is you're consuming and some skills that you could build this summer. So I'm really rooting for you, and I will see you next time.